Hi everyone, welcome to Wharton Tech Talks. I'm Spandana,
And I'm Javier.
and we're the new co hosts for Wharton Tech Talks. For our first episode this season, we have an amazing speaker of a truly innovative company.
Today we are joined by Jem Kansu, who is the Vice President of Product at Duolingo. He previously led Duolingo's monetization efforts and grew the company revenue from zero to more than 300 million a year. Jem is a fellow Whartonite as he graduated with a Wharton MBA in 2016. Jem, we're super excited to have you here on the podcast. Where are you calling us from?
Super excited to be here as well. Thank you for having me. I'm calling in from New York, actually. More specifically, I'm in our office, the Duolingo office in New York.
Amazing. For our listeners, could you share more about your career trajectory, what inspired you to join the tech industry and specifically product management?
Sure. Let me do kind of a quick story of my meandering path to getting to product management, which honestly is, if you talk to a lot of people who do product today, there's never a straight path. And mine is nothing but a linear path. But I'm originally from Turkey. I grew up in Turkey. I studied industrial engineering in undergrad. And then I thought investment banking was my calling, which was obviously the wrong call for me, but got a master's in financial engineering after college. And then realizing that wasn't the path I wanted to go down in, joined Google in Google's first office in Turkey, which was just starting out at the time. I did business development there for about 4 years and then decided I really wanted to get involved with product-related things. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to get involved in, but rather than growing just a business, I wanted to be part of building product. Over my MBA, I got to Wharton. Over my MBA, I had a chance to intern at a product management role at a company called Jawbone. They don't exist anymore, but they were the legacy company that built Bluetooth headphones, Bluetooth speakers, and then fitness wearables. So they kind of invented 3 separate categories. I loved the job, and I worked on our apps that our fitness wearables used. I really loved the job. I had a version to working in hardware, meaning hardware product management is a really different ballgame. And it's it's a slow moving product management role, meaning you ship maybe one product per year and you learn once a year a little bit. So one learning I had there was I really like product management and I wanted to do something around software. Eventually, through some exploration and soul searching, I found Duolingo, and I joined Duolingo in 2016 after graduating from Wharton. And I've been here ever since. When I joined Duolingo, the company was about 50 people. Today, the company is about more than 600 employees. It went through various transitions of growth, but I was PM number 3, product manager number 3, joining the company. And now I head up the product management team here. And then we have a group of more than 40 PMs as well. So I'll pause there and have a chat about any part that's more interesting.
No, that sounds amazing. And it looks like you've had a very interesting and, like you said, meandering career path. We actually wanted to switch gears right now and build more and learn more about your work at Duolingo. So, could you tell us more about the company as well as what you specifically work on there now?
Yeah, definitely. So Duolingo, for anybody that doesn't know, is the leading mobile learning platform. We have more than 500 million users globally. So Duolingo is the world's most popular way to learn languages. It's the most downloaded app in the education category on both Google Play and the App Store. It's become synonymous with language learning. For example, on Google, the term Duolingo is searched for 9 times more than learn Spanish. So it's become a verb on its own to learn languages. And right now, we are also expanding beyond language learning as well. So Duolingo's mission is to provide access to education, not just language education. So we have products that teach reading and writing, like literacy, or math as well. And over time, we plan to kind of expand our education footprint. Today, on the language learning side, we teach more than 40 languages, like the common ones you would expect, like Spanish, English, French, all the big languages, to even endangered ones like Navajo, or even fictional ones like Klingon, or so languages that are not really used in real life outside of shows. So we cover a wide range of languages on the platform. My role is I'm the head of product, which leads 3 separate functions. That's product management, user research, and product operations. And yeah, I've been with the company for about 6 years now. And I always say startup years are like dog years, so multiply by 7 is how it feels. But it's been a nice journey to be here as well.
No, that's great to hear. And definitely, going from PM number 3 to now heading up product seems like quite a phenomenal journey. And, just for our listeners, as you're thinking through different projects, what is your internal process to decide which feature you're about to build next?
Yeah, let me try to give a structured answer to this. So basically, to decide on what features to build and what to invest in, I would say we follow kind of a two-part process. And it's going to sound somewhat intuitive, but first you want to decide what problem to solve before you jump to a solution, because a feature is a solution to a problem, or if we're doing our job right, it should be. Decide what problem to solve, and then decide how to solve the problem. So deciding what problem to solve, generally we use two things, and I think most product teams will use some version of this. One is qualitative research, so meaning this could include talking to users, reading your App Store reviews, going on Reddit and seeing what people are complaining about your product, or actually even more importantly, using the product yourself a lot, seeing where it falls short for you. Collect all those inputs, that's qualitative input. Another one's quantitative, so looking at our data, user behavior, analyzing all kinds of user flows within the app, running A/B tests, analyzing that data and making sense of it. So qualitative input and quantitative input, eventually you point to a problem you want to solve. Let's say for Duolingo, an example of that would be we don't teach speaking as well as we want. Let's solve speaking could be the one thing that comes out of probably a lot more fine-grained, but in general, it could be a problem that is we want to improve how we teach speaking on Duolingo. And then the second part kicks in, which is how should we solve it? There are many ways to kind of decide how to design a solution for it. One of them is getting inspiration from the world. So looking at successful products that are not even just in education, but successful products in the world that have solved similar problems and seeing how they solved it. For example, we get inspiration a lot from games because they've designed various fun experiences. And one of our challenges is making education fun. Another one is just brainstorming with a lot of smart people that work on product teams to see what solutions we can come up with. Combining all of those and eventually moving on to designing, prototyping, and kind of testing the feature ourselves, or giving it to our users to test to see if the solution we're thinking about makes sense. By the end, we get to this process. Obviously, we don't have perfect data, but we have quite a bit of signal to decide if the feature that we're thinking about or we've designed makes sense. And at that point, we decide to roll out an A/B test. And that's kind of at that point being built, engineered, and rolled out to users with an A/B test. And the A/B test itself generates pretty concrete data on if what we are doing is working or not. And that's kind of when we make the final call to give a feature to all of our users or not.
No, that sounds great. And thanks so much for the very structured explanation as well. We'll be coming back to learning more about the A/B testing culture in a bit. But before we go there, you led the development of Duolingo's subscription product, Super Duolingo. And that now makes up more than 75% of Duolingo's revenue. So just thinking back, what were some of these early data points that you relied on when you were making this decision to launch this?
There were a few. Now looking back, so this was the year 2017, to date myself here, when we first were exploring the idea of monetization on the Duolingo learning app. And the reason, so the Duolingo as a company has existed since 2012. For about 5 years, monetization was not a focus. It was all about user growth. Around 2016-17, there was a lot of focus on obviously figuring out how to be sustainable as a business. And we started experimenting with various hypotheses we had at the time. The first one was testing gamified consumable in-app purchases. And the very first thing we tested was on Duolingo, you have this metric called the daily streak. If you use Duolingo every day consecutively, your daily streak goes up. The very first thing we tested was an in-app purchase if you broke your streak. So let's say you've been on the app for 10 days, you miss one day, your streak breaks. So it's not a consecutive streak anymore. You could repair it for one more day for, I think the price was $3 at the time. That was our very first purchase. And the idea was, so the whole ethos of Duolingo is we will never charge for content. We want to provide content for free, but then that forces kind of all of our product teams to think about creative ways to monetize things that aren't learning content. And the reason we never charge for learning content is twofold. One is because of our mission. We want to make education accessible. Two, we think this is good for long-term business. If we charge for content, you'll find endless amount of subscription apps that are fully paid in the education space. being free for our content and making it fun is our differentiator. So we would like to keep that long-term as part of our long-term strategy as well. Anyway, long story short, in-app purchases was kind of our first experiment. It found some product market fit, but the most interesting thing was we found a lot of users saying, thank you for giving us a way to pay you guys. And that was a little bit of a waking moment for us because we didn't think this would be a home run when we created this kind of very optional in-app purchase. However, we saw a lot of demand of people just looking for things to pay for in Duolingo because their logic was they've been using Duolingo for free for years and they got a lot of value out of it. And there was a lot of just generally like goodwill demand on if there was more stuff, I would love to buy it. We were also getting a lot of requests for a donate button, and we're not a nonprofit, so we obviously didn't want to collect donations either. So this gave kind of more thinking on like, all right, what could we structure? The other thing we did in that time frame was try out advertising because that's another way to monetize without asking for anybody to pay. That found that we got some wins there as well. So as these were happening, a lot of people who were saying, I would like to pay you guys, started saying, I would like to pay you guys, and I want to remove my ads. And then, so this user demand led us to think, okay, well, the most obvious thing we can try is a no ads offer. So all of that led us to come up with a very early test. That was a really weird test, which was, we didn't want to build a whole subscription because it was kind of complicated. We built a purchase that you could make for, I think, $5 that will remove your ads for 30 days. In hindsight, that was really weird. I don't know why we did that, but the subscription sounded complicated. So we tested this. A lot of people started buying this item. And at that point, we said subscription should be the next thing we test. We tested it. It found really strong product market fit almost out of the gate. And then ever since, we've been investing in making our kind of freemium subscription better and better. And I use the word freemium deliberately because Duolingo is still free to use. You don't need to pay us a cent to learn all the French you want. But you do get added features and benefits if you buy the subscription. And that has become kind of the growth engine for Duolingo. Meaning the free product being strong brings in a lot of users just because they want to use Duolingo and it's fun and it's free to use. And some percentage, a small percentage of our users choose to get the no ads, the upgraded version. They get a few more features by getting today what's called Super Duolingo. At the time, it was called Duolingo Plus. And that drives, like you said earlier, drives currently 75% of our business.
Amazing, Jem. That's a great segue to our next topic, which is experimentation, actually. You mentioned the early experiments you did for finding the correct business model and the correct monetization strategy for a company. We have also read that Duolingo runs about 500 A/B tests per quarter. So can you tell us more about how you are thinking about A/B testing to drive growth at the moment? I think that will help us understand how that has evolved as comparison to the beginning.
Definitely. So I think that stat has gone up much more than the time that was surfaced. So it's a certainly ever-growing metric. There's a few things. So A/B testing is also, just to define what A/B testing means, basically in your product experience, generally most tech products who do A/B tests operate this way. You randomly segment your users to two different buckets or three or more, depending on what the test is structured to be. And you show them one experience in one arm and you show them a different experience in the other one. Since they're randomly assigned, you can very cleanly measure what the change you want to make does to user behavior. So let's say we would like to change a color of a button from red to green, and we give the red button to one group, we give the green button to the other one, see what the click-through is on this button. This is a very simplified way to define A/B testing. We do run more than 500 of these per quarter because we have a lot of product teams testing different hypotheses in our products. The few things that I think make us unique when it comes to A/B testing is one is how product teams have become almost experts in A/B testing. So if you work on a product team, which is the majority of Duolingo, we expect everybody to understand how A/B testing works. So if you're designing a change, you can think about how to separate the arms better so the test concludes better results. Or you can think about the volume of people that would kind of see this test. I think everyone from product management, design, engineering are pretty much experts in how A/B testing works. That's one. So it's kind of in the DNA and the culture of the company. And when we think about growth or monetization, they also have clear goals. So growth has this beautiful metric, daily active users. So you make a change in a day, you kind of start seeing results so they can measure their change in an A/B test quickly. Monetization is similar. They can look at things like ads revenue or subscription revenue. And by having these tools, so they have good tools, they have a good understanding on how A/B testing and data analysis works, and they have a clean metric. This is the trifecta to having teams that can run really fast to drive growth, because they can test any hypothesis they can come up with really quickly, get results, and once they've verified a hypothesis, they can go build on it. So let's say you think green button will do much better than, I'm picking this very dumb and simplified example, green button will do much better than red. We test it, green does do better. But then you say, well, does the dark shade of green do better than the light shade of green? And then we go and test that. And we can kind of very quickly compound improvements through fast A/B testing. And this is very simplified example. You could also imagine a much bigger one, which is we can redesign the homepage, and it might take us 6 months to build. But once we have the A/B test results and a different design does better, we can kind of change the design elements, seeing what has worked. And this honestly has been the formula for just what you asked, which is driving growth and or monetization. Or for us, another third improvement area is teaching a language better and improving that through A/B testing as well. But that's been the core driver of growth for Duolingo.
No, that's absolutely great to hear. And thanks so much for all the color you gave and all the examples you gave around how it's used. And, we were just reading the news and we saw that you just launched your math app, Duolingo Math. So, first of all, congratulations on the milestone. And can you tell us more about why you are launching a math app to begin with? Just because that's not something we ever associated Duolingo with.
Definitely. So the one core competency we have at Duolingo, as a company, we've learned a lot in the last 10 years about teaching a subject through a mobile experience. So things like game mechanics, leaderboards, experience points that are actually transferable to other subjects. They're not language learning specific. So one thing we realized, we do have a lot of things we can apply to other subjects. But the reason we chose math specifically as one of the expansions that we did is math skills help people find jobs and ultimately earn higher incomes. And that is similar to why Duolingo got started with language learning. Meaning, if the one very specific example is if you are growing up in a country where English is not the native language, learning English improves your life outcome and your income significantly. It's proven in almost every circumstance. And learning more languages leads to basically less income inequality. Math has a similar effect. So the math skills, having better math skills can help you go to a better school, get a better job, and ultimately earn higher income. So it serves the mission of Duolingo very well. The other one is there was a need in the market that we saw. Lots of people struggle with math anxiety, and we wanted to help. And honestly, for us, the last thing is more internal, but it was a fun challenge to kind of take what we've learned from language learning on mobile and apply it to a new subject. So we were pretty excited about kind of trying to make math teaching work on mobile. And a little bit of context on the math app as well. So it's currently live on iOS on the App Store. It's an educational app that teaches elementary level math skills. However, it's not only for people learning elementary math, it's also for anybody that is maybe brushing up their math skills as well. So it has 2 courses you can use. One of them is if you want to follow an elementary math course, or if you want to do brain training, you can choose your path. And it's very new. It launched last week or maybe a couple weeks ago now. And so the data is very new. I think we're very excited about it, and we have a whole roadmap that we want to execute on. So the excitement is very high here internally.
Congratulations. I agree that language and math are very critical. That's something my family always told me, like coming from Peru, they told me you have to learn English because you will have more possibilities. And then look at what happened. I'm in Philadelphia, so I think it's super important. So I agree with that. In terms of the Duolingo math app, how did you end up deciding having a separate app versus integrating it with the existing language app?
I think for us, the decision was purely about audience. So for things that will have a different audience entirely, our strategy is to have a separate app. Meaning, if we saw a lot of overlap between who would learn French or Spanish or any language on Duolingo to who would learn math, the overlap is very small. Surely there will be an overlap, but since the audience we thought would be different, our kind of thought process was almost always creating a separate app. And that's mainly how we decide whenever we want to teach a new subject on, is there audience overlap or is there any other benefit to bundling things together? Because you could argue both ways. I think you could create a mega app that teaches a bunch of subjects, or you could kind of separate things because the audience can pick and choose Right now, what we have gone deeper into is having separate apps for different audiences. So we, at least from what we know until so far, is the math audience is very different than language learning. In the future, if we decide it's the same group of people that are doing both, we could certainly consider integrating them within each other better. But right now, again, minimal audience overlap and a very different subject. Since those two boxes were checked, we decided to launch a separate app.
Yeah, makes sense. Now we'd love to pivot and ask you a couple of rapid fire style questions.
Let's do it. Okay.
So, when you're interviewing candidates, what is a good question you use and why do you use it?
The one I really like is we have I guess you would call a product strategy question. And it's generally the type of scenarios that you would experience as a PM. So an example is, let's say Duolingo is launching a new app. Let's say Duolingo is going to get into geography. Find a business model. So evaluate all the business models you can think of for a new app like this and estimate the revenue it can generate in its first year of operations. I really like the question because it actually measures two things. One of them is thinking through a very kind of vague and big problem and breaking it down into kind of reasonable product recommendations, because defining a business model for a brand new app, it's not very straightforward. You can pick kind of the common ones. You can say ads, we'll copy from Duolingo. But actually, if you think deeper, there's much more stuff to do. Exploring that world, dialing it down, and then also thinking through an estimation, which is more of a kind of a strategy estimation question, but tying the two together in a logical way is generally a very good test. Now, this exact question actually changes over interviews, but a version of a problem that PMs face at Duolingo and kind of condensing that into a problem like this is one of my favorite interview questions.
That's great. And tell us more about, how did the Duolingo owl become a TikTok star?
At this point, unclear how it all originated. However, the few things that kicked our mascot Duo into turning into a TikTok sensation was, one, we wanted to have a presence in TikTok. And that stems from the fact that we don't do a lot of paid marketing at Duolingo. Majority of our growth comes from organic growth, so word of mouth. And obviously having a presence in a social media platform where we're not acquiring ads, it's just our content spreads organically, fit into how we think about marketing anyway. However, our first experiments was not very successful because we approached TikTok as, all right, it's a growing platform, we should try something. But then we produced these really well-branded and highly production value content. And no one, I think it was just super low interaction. And then I think around that time, we hired our current social media manager, who was, I think, 21 or 22 years old at the time, which was the perfect fit for figuring out TikTok because we were all honestly not the TikTok generation, or at least at the time when we first started doing this. So everything that was proposed seemed wacky to us. However, she cracked the code. She started posting this, what now has become Duolingo's brand on TikTok, and it just caught fire. And over time, I think we leaned more and more into kind of the quirky culture that we have within the company and represented it through Duo the Owl. And right now, TikTok is great for our brand. I think it really builds our brand in a way that we want, which is kind of quirky and fun, which is what we try to do within the product and the company. But also, it's actually become a huge growth channel for us. So we get a ton of new users that just discovered Duolingo through TikTok. They didn't know that Duolingo even existed. They didn't even have a desire to learn a language, but they saw this wacky owl on TikTok, and that got them to learn a language, which is honestly amazing to see.
Yeah, and for all our listeners, go and check Duo. Going to Dua Lipa concert in New York City is very funny.
Yeah, the videos are very funny. So if anybody that's listening has not checked it out, highly recommended.
Jem, who is a world or industry leader you look up to?
Someone that I work with very closely, who's my manager, our CEO at Duolingo, Luis Vonan. I learned a lot from him throughout my tenure. So I've been working with him for about 6 years now. And the reason I pick him as someone I look up to quite a bit has been my mentor, my manager, my friend for a long time. He's our CEO and he was our founder, and he's relentless in keeping our mission alive. So Duolingo could have turned into any kind of paid product along its way. There was a lot of push for him to monetize and basically generate more revenue as he was growing. But I think he kind of instilled this The mission comes from him and it's instilled in the company. So he's relentless in kind of keeping our mission alive in a way, which is to provide access to good education. I think that is really admirable. And I think I've learned a lot from him in sticking to your guns when you know you're doing something right. It's just, if it's good for the world, we can kind of figure out the business part over time. But I think making sure you stick to why you're doing the right thing. And Duolingo was a good example of him doing this in his kind of leadership role.
That's great. And just going back to your time at Wharton, what was your favorite class?
It was hands down, by far, managerial decision making by Joseph Simmons. I don't know if he still teaches the class, but it was the class content, managerial decision making, is still something I refer to. It's been, I think, 7 years now since I took the class. Another class was, I'm going to butcher the exact name, but Peter Fader's marketing analytics class, which taught me everything I know about how lifetime value works and how to go deeper into analyzing customer value. Those were really, I remember they were really expensive in credits, but they were totally worth it.
Amazing. We'll get on to course match and start bidding on that class.
Yeah, put all your credits on managerial decision making first.
For sure. We'll definitely do that. So, okay, now it's our final question to you. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is your boldest, most unique prediction that folks might feel is a moonshot about the edtech industry, but that you believe will happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mine is, and I don't know if this is super controversial or not, but I think you can take either side of this argument and it'd be a valid one, which is, so generative AI is like a really hot topic these days because seeing a few of what GPT-3 can do, a lot of the work that comes off of OpenAI, and there's a lot of other companies doing really innovative things, what GPT-3 can do, which is generative AI for text, so an AI technology that can answer a lot of your questions in an incredibly intelligent, almost human-sounding way, or image generation like DALL-E. If anyone is interested and hasn't checked out these products, highly recommend it, on giving it a prompt and how much image generation it can do is fascinating. And I think generally this generative AI as a technology will 100% transform how we teach a subject to somebody. As a company, we are investing a lot in artificial intelligence as well. So this is both my take, but also the Duolingo take on this as well. And maybe to make this a little bit less moonshotty, but even more specific, for example, if you want to teach someone a language, you might need to create, 100 hours of content for them to work through. And to do this manually is an insane amount of work. So if you need to create 100 hours of reading or like exercises, it's an insane content creation machine. However, these technologies are making it much, much easier without having human manual work to create content that is tailored perfectly for someone's language level. So you can now, even now, but I think this is going to become much more common, give the prompt of saying, give me kind of 10 stories that are written in a funny TV sitcom style and have the translations written down from English to Spanish and make them, 10 sentences. This is now almost doable with zero human intervention. And you can see how in 5 to 10 years, this will become much, much more advanced. So you could even imagine this turning into a video format with no human creation. I think this will really change how much we can do in digital products. And it will really change, I think, education, mainly because one of the biggest blockers on education product scaling is content is very hard to produce and scale because it needs to be very specific. It needs to be tailored to the user's language proficiency. So content becomes a big bottleneck for scaling educational experiences. I think it will get solved a lot with generative AI and it will speed up 100x and the cost will go down almost 100x. So my prediction is you'll see a lot more innovative educational products, and hopefully Duolingo will be one of those and one of the leaders as well in just scaling experiences that we didn't have before using creation from generative artificial intelligence.
Very cool. Thanks so much. And I think it sounds pretty amazing and really looking forward to the next 5 to 10 years. I'm sure that you guys will be leading the way there and can't wait to experience, all these features on the Duolingo app.
Likewise, we'll do some crazy, crazy features for sure. So also very excited about the next 5 to 10 years.
Amazing. So thanks so much for joining us. It was great having you on and we really appreciated all your insights. So thank you again on behalf of Wharton Tech Talks.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jem.